Thanks for joining me. I'm Aaron Rutten, and today I'll be reviewing the new 2025 version of the Wacom Intuos Pro. If you're looking for a comprehensive and honest hands-on review of this tablet, you're in the right place. I'll demonstrate all of the new features and describe how the 2025 model compares to the previous generation. Quick disclaimer, this is not a sponsored video, but Wacom did send me this tablet unconditionally to review as I please. As always, all opinions in this video are my own. The last time Wacom updated its flagship tablet was in 2017, so I'm excited to try this new design. As tablets without a display go, this is the best Wacom has to offer. As you can see, the new version looks dramatically different. It still comes in small, medium, and large sizes. This one is the medium. This is not just a redesign with a few minor improvements. There's a lot to say about the new Intuos Pro. Let's start with the most obvious change, and that is the dimensions. A new integrated circuit design has allowed the thickness of the Intuos Pro to be dramatically reduced. This has got to be the thinnest tablet I have ever seen. The 2025 Intuos Pro is a little over 1/4 of an inch thick, with a tapered depth that slims down even more to 0.16 inches. This creates a slight incline, allowing your wrist to rest more comfortably. You might not think it's much of a difference, but if you try them side by side, you can feel how your arm strains a little on the thicker device. The width and height of the device have also been considerably reduced. The newer medium-size model is 11.5 by 8.1 inches. The 2017 medium version is 13.2 by 8.5. I can easily fit the 2025 model inside the 2017 version. The new model feels about as thick as a legal-sized notepad, whereas the older model feels more like a sketchbook. The smaller profile is definitely an advantage if you don't have a lot of room for a tablet on your desk. The weight has been cut nearly in half for all three sizes. At just under 1 pound, you'll hardly feel the Intuos Pro Medium in your backpack. The active area on the newer medium size is 10.4 by 5.8 inches. On the older medium, it's only 8.7 by 5.8, so you're getting more width on the newer version since more of the tablet surface is dedicated to drawing. The active area has been widened and the design slimmed down on the small and large versions as well. You can even customize the active area in the Wacom tablet properties to work on one or all of your displays. If you use multiple displays, then you can program one of your buttons to toggle the tablet between each display. If you force proportions, this will keep your drawing from becoming distorted if the tablet doesn't match the aspect ratio of your display. The extra width is nice because you may lose some active area when you use this mode. I get that reducing bulk is less wasteful and makes these devices more portable, but there was a reason why Wacom was leaving these buffer zones around the edges of their tablets. You can rest your palm in this area rather than having it hang over an edge. Since this particular tablet is so thin, this isn't so much of an issue, but on others it is. I can't say I'm a fan of reducing these bezels, especially on the display tablets like the Cintiq. Another benefit to the bezels is that when your pen and palm go beyond the active area, they don't scrape the edge of the device or run off the tablet. Not a big deal if you do small gestures for coloring, animating, 3D, or photo editing, but if you're doing large gesture drawing or painting, it feels more difficult to stay within the boundaries of the device. The edge of the bezel is sort of sharp all the way around the device. Not like it will cut you, but it's just slightly raised and catches the pen tip. It also rubs on your hand, which gets uncomfortable if you spend a lot of time near the edges. In contrast, the 2017 Intuos Pro is more flush and smooth, at least on the top and bottom. The pen can still snag on the edge, but since there is this wide bezel, you're less likely to encounter it. Nothing is rubbing on my hand when I draw near the edge. You can also flip this tablet if you are left-handed and utilize the bezel on that side. You'll need to set the orientation in the Wacom tablet properties. You can change the orientation of the ExpressKeys on the 2025 model, but I'll come back to that. I'm not sure how I feel about the changes to the product design. It seems like lately there are always trade-offs. Something is improved, but at the expense of other useful features. I love that this is so thin and portable, but I also feel like the 2017 model was more comfortable to work on in some respects. I acknowledge that supply chain issues, chip shortages, tariffs, and other political nonsense is adding a lot of difficulty for electronics manufacturers like Wacom. Unfortunately, we're living in a time when tough decisions like this have to be made. Still, it's a shame that it has to be this way because it's creating a lot of challenges for digital artists. But I digress. Personally, I would have left some bezel on the sides so that we get the best of both worlds. Maybe in the future we'll have extensions we can slide on like a Nintendo Switch controller. While we're on the topic of the tablet exterior, I'd like to also point out the improvements in the build quality of the Intuos Pro. I mentioned the new integrated circuit earlier. This also allows the tablet to be more energy efficient. I can't help but wonder if part of the motivation for a different microchip was out of necessity, considering the uncertainty of sourcing and importing those sorts of components nowadays. Rather than mostly plastic, the new Intuos Pro is built using some magnesium, which is one of the lightest metals you can build electronics with. The back shell and area surrounding the express keys feel like metal, while the remainder is plastic. Yay for less plastic! The magnesium provides a lot of rigidity. Even though this tablet is incredibly thin, it still feels quite durable. If you had both of these tablets lying on a couch, and your Uncle Brad and Aunt Diane sat on them, I'd imagine the 2017 model would be more likely to survive since it's thicker. However, if an angry eagle flew up and snatched these from your hands, I'd think the lighter magnesium would probably reduce the damage from an impact. On the back side of the tablet are two rubbery bars that help to grip your desk so the tablet doesn't slide. Under normal drawing conditions, it stays put pretty well. Now let's have a look at the express keys and dials. The medium and large both have 2 dials and 2 sets of express keys. The small only has 1 of each. Rather than a vertical orientation like on older tablets, the express keys are clustered together in a flower shape. There are 4 pedals and a center button, which is reserved for the dials, which I'll come back to. You can program these buttons to activate modifier keys like Shift, Control, and Alt. They can also perform tablet functions and shortcuts for your applications. You can choose global settings or have the settings change automatically when you move between applications. In other words, I can have separate shortcuts and dials for Photoshop than I do for Krita. Having the buttons at the top of the device helps to make the tablet ambidextrous and more ergonomic. However, because you typically use one hand to draw and the other to press shortcuts, this layout isn't very practical. I end up covering the tablet with my arm, especially when I try to access the controls on the right. There's an interruption in my flow as I have to move the pen from its position. Again, this is another trade-off. I think the circular arrangement of the buttons is a nice way to conserve materials and makes it easier to access multiple commands without too much movement. However, it makes more sense to me to have a dedicated side for drawing and a side for shortcuts. You can configure the orientation of the tablet in the Wacom Center. At first, I thought this was interesting. Maybe you can get a larger drawing area when working on a vertical canvas. But if you have force proportions enabled, you'll have a severe reduction in the active area width at the top and bottom. I suppose you could rotate your display, but that's not very common. Disabling force proportions causes too much distortion, so I don't see much use for the vertical orientation. Common shortcuts like resizing your brush or zooming are going to be more difficult than necessary with this express key layout. I would recommend using the integrated buttons and dials for infrequent shortcuts and invest in a separate controller for everything else. Wacom offers the express key remote, but there is also the Stream Deck, Loop Deck, Tour Box, and many other similar devices. Any of these will be more useful than the integrated express keys. Although, in terms of having a minimal and/or portable setup, the inclusion of express keys in the design is definitely a benefit. Next, let's have a look at the mechanical dials. These analog dials work a lot better than the finicky touchring on the older model. It was either too sensitive or not sensitive enough, even with the option to customize it. You can customize the new dial sensitivity as well. Each dial can be programmed with 3 different modes. You use the center express key button to toggle between these modes. As you can see, I can invoke bidirectional shortcuts like zooming, rotating the canvas, changing the size of my brush, and undoing and redoing. It can be easy to lose track of which mode you are in and what you programmed the dials to do. Fortunately, there is a HUD overlay that appears on your primary display. It's a shame you can't move it since it might be disruptive to those who record their screens while working. The HUD is better than nothing, but what would be more intuitive is a visual cue on the tablet like an LED. If you don't need to switch between multiple dial modes, the center buttons can be programmed to something else. The buttons and dials have a pleasant feel to them. The dials are nearly flush with the tablet surface, and smooth so that your finger easily glides to the textured edges. This texture grips your finger, and the dials feel very precise. The dials make an audible click as you spin them. You can also feel the clicking movement, which sort of provides haptic feedback. The buttons have a slight friction to them. They are a little more rubbery feeling than the rest of the tablet. These make a clicking sound when you press them as well. The dials and buttons are a little wiggly, but it doesn't feel like they will fall out or anything. In the Wacom Center, I can choose from some presets for the buttons and dials. For example, I can choose up, down, left, and right for the buttons, or I can choose the modifier keys. This programs all of the buttons at once, which saves you a lot of time. For the dials, there are presets for navigation like zoom and rotate, or I can quickly program them to resize the brush and cycle through layers. The Wacom Center is a huge improvement over the old Wacom Tablet Properties control panel, but you can still use both. If you don't like these express keys, you do have the option of disabling them altogether in the advanced settings. Now let's explore the pen that comes with the Intuos Pro 2025. As you may have guessed, it's the Pro Pen 3, which is Wacom's newest stylus. It features over 8,000 pressure levels and supports tilt. Tilting is very useful for making your brushes feel more natural and dynamic. One of the key features of the Pro Pen 3 is that it's customizable. This ends up being less wasteful, which I can attest to as someone who has 500,000 pens. I have some pretty strong opinions about this pen, but since I already covered that in my review of the Cintiq Pro 27, I'll have you watch that if you're interested in learning more. Spoiler alert, I like previous generation pens better. Luckily for me, you can use older pens like the Pro Pen 2 on the new Intuos Pro. Or how about the airbrush? Anyone remember that? What's more, with the new dual pen technology, you can even use EMR pens like the Staedtler Norris Digital or the Lamy All-Star. These aren't as precise as the Pro Pen and have half the pressure sensitivity, but they offer a more traditional aesthetic. Best of all, you can use more than one pen on this tablet. As you can see in the Wacom Center, the professional level pens like the Pro Pens can be programmed with individual settings. The EMR pens all share the same settings. Barrel rotation is compatible with the Intuos Pro, but the Pro Pen 3 doesn't support it. Only the Art Pen supports rotation, but is sold out and there's not any indication of when or if it will be back in stock. My hunch is that a newer Art Pen is in the works because why else would modern Wacom tablets continue to support the feature? That's not to mention rotation is becoming more common in art software. Even the Apple Pencil Pro supports barrel rotation, so I'd be really surprised if rotation is being discontinued. Let's move on to discuss the multi-touch feature that was present on the previous generation Intuos Pros, but has since been dropped from the 2025 model. According to Wacom, multi-touch was not a popular feature among pro artists, and since it adds to the production cost, it was left out. I'm not sure if I feel strongly either way about this change. Zooming and rotation can be done with the dials, which are more precise. And you can pan with an express key. Since you can use it to navigate your computer, multi-touch can be useful if you don't want to rely on a laptop trackpad or use a mouse, but it's definitely possible to get by without it. Now let's have a look at the connectivity options. As with many of Wacom's other non-display tablets, you can connect to your computer with a USB cable or low-energy Bluetooth. Any computer with Windows 10 or later, or macOS 13 or later will work. The cable included is a USB-C to USB-A, but an adapter is included to convert the USB-A into USB-C. Very handy if you are working on a Mac. The length of the USB cable is 1.8 meters, which is about 6 feet. It feels like it's PVC-free. There is a physical switch at the top of the tablet that will let you switch between USB and 2 separate Bluetooth devices. Curiously, I don't see any mention of Android support in Wacom's documentation, yet I tried pairing it with my Samsung phone, and it works. There is a cursor that shows, which really helps with accuracy, but the Wacom Center doesn't recognize the tablet, so I can't change the settings like force proportions or mapping. Only a fraction of the active area can be used, and there isn't a visual cue where that is on the tablet surface. I did try flipping the orientation in the Wacom Center on my desktop, but it doesn't save internally, so there isn't a way to trick the Intuos Pro into using more active area on Android. If I use Krita, which barely fits on a smartphone, you can see that pressure sensitivity is supported. However, when I tried switching to a larger tablet, I wasn't able to get the tablet working. It could be that this tablet is much older than my smartphone. While the Intuos Pro can be used on an Android device, you'd be better off choosing the Wacom 1, 12, or 13 since they will give you the full functionality and a better experience with DeX mode. With that in mind, I don't think it's necessary to make the Intuos Pro more functional on Android. The Bluetooth connection has a quirk, and that is, it goes to sleep automatically to save power. This can't be disabled or customized, and you'll have to power the tablet back on to use it again. Saving power is a good thing, but if this is bothersome, then just use the USB cable. As the drawing surface goes, the 2025 model has been improved to reduce nib wear. It feels about how you'd expect, with a nice balance of smoothness and natural friction. It feels a lot like drawing on paper with a pen or pencil. You can change the feel simply by changing the nibs on your pen. Included are 5 standard, 3 felt, and 2 rubber nibs hiding in the pen stand. You can replace the texture sheet, but there aren't any alternative surfaces at this point. The pen stand is solid and grippy on the bottom. It looks like it's made of magnesium as well. The textured grip makes it clear that you should unscrew this to find something inside. I'm willing to bet most people never thought to look inside the previous generation stands. The pen stays pretty stable in the stand, even with different configurations. It isn't easily knocked over like it could be in previous stands. To be thorough, I'll quickly put this tablet through some basic tests to see how the accuracy, pressure, and tilt perform. Overall, the Intuos Pro behaves as I would expect. I'll make a quick demonstration drawing so you can see how it performs in a real-world scenario. I am drawing in Krita, which is a FreeArt application, and one of the best out there. You can learn Krita with my video training course available at aaronrutten.com. As someone who is used to drawing on a large display, it does feel difficult to use this type of tablet, but you get used to it. For that reason, I'm not going to attempt to draw anything detailed, so don't judge my artistic skills too harshly. As you can see, I'm trying my best to make use of the ExpressKeys, but it's really hard to stay in the flow. Other than that, it feels great to draw on the Intuos Pro. Now for some comparisons of the new Intuos Pro to other similar devices. We already have a pretty good idea of how it compares to the previous generation, but here's a table that shows the key differences. On Wacom's website, the price hasn't changed for the older 2017 models. It's the same as the newer ones, with the small at $249.95, the medium at $379.95, and the large at $499.95. However, they only seem to be available refurbished with around a $100 discount. You might be able to find them used as well. I'd also like to include a few display tablets in this comparison, because at these price points you might consider opting for one of those instead. The Wacom 112 starts at around $200, and the Wacom 113 is around $500. These allow you to draw directly onto the display. The EMR pen won't be as good as the Pro Pen 3, and there aren't any ExpressKeys, but that might be fine if you are more of a hobbyist. The active area on the 13 is comparable to the medium Intuos Pro, if not a tiny bit larger. It feels more natural to draw on a display, so that's an important consideration. For $549.95, you can get the Cintiq 16, not the Pro version, just the regular Cintiq 16. This would give you a larger active area, the superior Pro Pen 2, and support for other Wacom pens like the Art Pen. It's quite a bit bulkier than the Wacom 1, but it may be a better option if it will always sit on your desk and you don't plan to travel with it. And last, there's the MoveInk 13, which is very thin and portable, comes with the Pro Pen 3, supports EMR pens, and includes multi-touch. In many respects, the Move Ink is like an Intuos Pro with a display, sans the ExpressKeys. It's also more expensive at $749.95. Considering the prices have come down a lot on display tablets, there aren't many reasons to choose a tablet without a screen. The advantages of the Intuos Pro are that it's less bulky, and assuming you use Bluetooth, there are no cables to bother with. Other than that, I think most artists would be happier drawing on a display. If you are new to all of this, then you might be wondering how the Intuos Pro compares to a cheaper tablet like the Wacom One Medium. At around $100, the Wacom One is certainly a lot more affordable. If you've never owned a tablet before, then the Pro Pen 3 and ExpressKeys might not matter much. But if you're a professional who spends a lot of time working with a tablet, those ExpressKeys can save you time. You'll also get a more precise and comfortable drawing experience using the Intuos Pro. If you have your heart set on the Intuos Pro, then my recommendation for size would be as follows. The small is too small for drawing, in my opinion. It's fine for coloring or photo editing, but the active area will feel confining if you're drawing with large gestures. It would be like drawing on a small notepad. The large is the size I'd recommend if you're primarily drawing or painting, since you'll have the most freedom of movement. It's closer in size to a sketchbook or a small canvas. The medium is a good compromise if you can't afford the large. It's a decent size, but might feel a little restrictive to some artists. It's about as long as a letter-sized paper, but not as wide. Let's wrap up this review with a recap of the pros and cons of the Intuos Pro 2025. These will be from my perspective as a professional artist. This is what I would consider if I were to upgrade or purchase this tablet for my own use. The first pro is the thinner size and lighter weight. This is one of the most portable tablets on the market. A real sketchbook would be much heavier and take up more space, so this provides an advantage to working digitally. The second pro is the mechanical dials. These work a lot better than the touch-based one on the previous generation. Third, I like that the active area is larger on all three sizes. And last, I can appreciate the reduction in plastic and the more eco-friendly packaging. Although they are most certainly beneficial to others, I personally wouldn't have much use for the other features like EMR pen compatibility and multiple Bluetooth channels. Now for the cons. First, I miss the wider bezel and the more practical express key placement. I feel like the design was better on the older Intuos Pro. And second, I'm not a fan of the Pro Pen 3 and its absence of barrel rotation. Other than that, I don't have too much to complain about. I could work past what I don't like and still be quite happy if the Intuos Pro was my everyday drawing tablet. That covers everything I wanted to say about the Intuos Pro. Whether you're a beginner or a pro, this tablet has more than enough features to get you into making art and other creative projects on a computer. And for something you can slip into a bag and take with you to school, the office, or while traveling, the Intuos Pro is hard to beat. You really can't go wrong with Wacom, so I'm happy to recommend this tablet. You can purchase the Intuos Pro online. I have a link in the description of this video. This is an affiliate link, so I get commission for any sales I generate without any additional cost to you. Please use that link if you found this review helpful. At some point, these will probably be available in retail stores as well. That's all for this review. I hope you'll subscribe and check out some of my other digital art product reviews. I also offer brushes, courses, and other resources at aaronrutten.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.